7, 8, and 9 in our free agent count up, and two of the most interesting names we'll talk about: Pat Kane and Ryan O'Reilly. Who would we rather return to Buffalo? Coming up on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in to the Locked On Sabres podcast, and thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and check us out on our YouTube channel where you can find us just by searching Locked On Sabres on YouTube. More free agency talk today on the show. 7, 8, and 9 in our free agency count up. We are playing off the list created by Frank Saravelli at Daily Faceoff, and some very interesting names on today's list. Some that some fans will want to see, some that are pretty unrealistic, but fun. Alex Killorn of the Tampa Bay Lightning, Patrick Kane, and Ryan O'Reilly. Those are the three players we'll talk about today. Break them down. I'll score them 1 through 10 from how they fit into the Sabres, contract, what they are at this point, all that coming up on the Locked On Sabres podcast. At Sneaky Joe Sports, if you want to follow me on Twitter, at Locked On Sabres, if you want to follow the podcast account. And again, YouTube, check us out, comment section. Feel free to get involved with the show that way. Today's episode brought to you by Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL, and when you enter the promo code LockedOnNHL, they'll throw in a free custom Birddogs Yeti-style tumbler with every order. Check them out, birddogs.com. So, we're going to kick it right off today with Alex Killorn. He is the first free agent on our list. And Killorn, before we get to Kane and O'Reilly, definitely the least interesting of these three, because I imagine fans are going to have some strong opinions one way or the other about especially Kane, but O'Reilly's kind of a fun name to toss around for this. I have no reason to believe he'll return, but we'll get to that. Killorn, number 7 out of Frank Saravelli's top 50 free agent list for unrestricted free agency, which will kick off on July 1st. Alex Killorn of the Tampa Bay Lightning, a long-time Lightning player that has been with the team for 10 years now, 2013 to 2023, 805 games played. This dude does not miss games. 82 games, 56 in a 56-game season, 68 in a 68-game season, 82, 81, 81, 71, 82. But since this guy became a regular, he does not miss games. He's one of the ultimate Ironmans in the National Hockey League. But now he is 34 years old, a 34-year-old Alex Killorn, and the projected contract from Frank Saravelli at Daily Faceoff is a 4-year deal worth $5.25 million per year. That would take him up to age 39. Don't love that at all. He is coming off in a contract year some career highs. 27 goals, which is a career high for Alex Killorn. 37 assists, career high for Alex Killorn. 64 points, career high for Alex Killorn. 64 points, he's typically been more of a 15 to 20 goal scorer that gives you between 40 and 50 points. But again, his numbers in the last 2 years have certainly increased. Been playing off of Andy and Rono's, from Andy and Rono stats, their graphs, their charts on these players for percentile, how good they are in each area of their game. And Killorn marks very favorably in offense, 81st percentile. Most of that is his ability as a finisher. He is a fantastic shooter. He is a 12.5% percentage shooter for his career. And he is 5 years in a row with a shooting percentage above 10%, including this past year, the second half of his career with 18.9. So maybe some regression coming his way, but a fantastic finisher. And let's be honest, if the Sabres are going to move on from Victor Olofsson, they might want to replace that, but with a little bit more of a complete player. And Killorn is a more complete player than Olofsson is. He's only 37 percentile for a transition game, but that's not horrible. And then he's defensively a 43 percentile defender, so about an average defender, but that's better than Olofsson. And penalty kill, 86th percentile. I've been searching for that guy, like, okay, if they really want to improve the PK, who makes sense for that. This guy, as much as anyone we've talked about, Alex Killorn, can help out in that area. And it's not just his ability on the ice. Killorn has leadership qualities. He's been on a championship team. So if they want another veteran guy in the room, if Zemgus Girgensons is going to leave the team and go elsewhere, then Killorn can pick up the leadership role that Girgensons will vacate. He could be right there next to Kyle Okposo, maybe step right in and wear an A on this team, but a big voice in the room that can help some young players take the next step. It's a credibility signing is really what it is. It's a credibility signing. If the Sabres sign Alex Killorn, those around the league will go, well, look at that. Yeah, big move. That's a winner. All right, that's a winner. They're ready to win, that team. That's because that's who signs Alex Killorn. That's who Alex Killorn chooses. That's why it's credibility. That guy knows what it takes to win, and if he chooses Buffalo, everyone's going to think, well, he must think they have what it takes to win. I don't fall in love with these ideals, though. Whether it's the credibility or whether it's the leadership or whether it's the penalty killing even. None of these aren't really my favorite ideas for why you go for a player. So I don't hate the player. I think he might fit well with this Sabres team right now. He would help them in certain areas. But my biggest qualm here is his age. Of the guys we've talked about, he's basically the oldest. And a 4-year deal that takes him up to age 38, I don't like that at all. So my free agent score for Alex Killorn is going to be a 4.7. I wouldn't hate it outright, but it would not be my favorite idea at all. But again, it would provide the Sabres some credibility if they signed Alex Killorn, who will be a free agent on July 1st. Number 7 in our free agency count up. Next up, Patrick Kane, a name that we'll probably talk about again, and the fans might talk about again. He'll be a free agent, and what is he going to want? And what do we have in terms of the player at this point in his career after getting traded to the Rangers at the deadline? That is upcoming here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, and we are presented by Birddogs. Birddogs makes you look good. Birddogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Birddogs shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but fit way better. They fit way better than regular shorts and are made of a stiff, restricting cotton. Birddogs fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki but stretches, so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. Birddogs uses anti-stink, sweat, wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. I love the golf joggers. I'm a big golfer. I love golf joggers because they're thin. You could wear them if it's a little bit warmer out in the 60s or even into the 70s, but if it's chilly, you can wear them as well. Very versatile. I love the tapered bottoms at the pants. And I love my Birddogs for golf purposes as well. Birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL. Enter the promo code LockedOnNHL for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's Birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your Birddogs off. We promise you. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We just talked about Alex Killorn. I gave him a 4.7. Next up, Patrick Kane. Strong opinions on either side for Patrick Kane to the Buffalo Sabres. Now, I think more fans than not, this is a guess. My read is more fans don't want Patrick Kane on the Buffalo Sabres than do want Patrick Kane on the Sabres. I think, some fans might think it'd be cool. Other fans just don't want him. I mean, and I think for good reason. They just don't want to have to root for the guy. And I understand that wholeheartedly. And that's kind of the camp. That's where I reside on Kane. I really don't want to have to watch him in a Sabre uniform. I don't know, just character and, off the ice stuff over the years. The allegations that have been brought against him. I might get over it and, not get over it, but stop thinking about it once the games begin. But I don't want him on the team. And it's more even than that, it's the player at this point in his career. But before we get to what he is, same age as Alex Killorn. The age doesn't really fit here. 34 years old. He's coming off a season with 21 goals, 37 assists for 57 points. That's a massive drop from the 92 points he had the season before. Bad team in Chicago, but he got to the Rangers and he had about the same points per game. He had a little bit higher goal production, but same points per game. Contract projection from Frank Saravelli. 3 years, $5.75 million. That's not a bad contract at all for Patrick Kane to take him up to age 37. That part of it I don't think is that bad. I just don't think he'll help the team that much. Here's why. Offensively, what are his percentiles? 61st percentile overall. He's still an amazing passer, an amazing stick handler, reads plays well in the offensive zone, but 61st percentile for offense. It's good, but it's no longer so good. You see what just happened there? Bit my tongue on the stream. Sorry about that. Wow. Where was I? His offensive game. Not anymore the offensive player that you might think is worth how bad he is defensively. 61st percentile for offense, 59th percentile for transition game, 2%, second percentile for defense. He is provably one of the worst defensive players in the sport. He is a complete and utter liability. He would step on a Sabres team that already is geared towards offense and struggles defensively. He would step on a team like that and instantly be their worst defensive player. And if they add any forwards, I want to see them get a better two-way guy that can do everything. And do they need more scoring? To me, why not just keep Victor Olofsson at that point? Why not just keep Olofsson? Olofsson's a different type of offensive player. He's a shooter. Kane's a playmaker. But both guys struggle in their own end. Olofsson's actually a better defensive player than Kane is. I don't know why you would just keep Olofsson at that point. Unless the only thing I wonder about, even on a 3-year deal, the owner. It's the only thing I wonder about. Does Terry Pegula have a desire to see Patrick Kane in a Sabre uniform? Because if he does, and he wants to put that into action, well, then that just, that might be all she wrote. But even if Pegula wants Kane, but is going to let Adams do his thing, I don't think the Sabres go near Patrick Kane. So that is pretty much where I am, Adam. I get, the fans don't want to root for him, and there are fans, of course, that would want nothing more than to see him play the final years of his career with the Sabres. This, by the way, is not even a credibility signing. Killorn, I mentioned it is. Around the league, everyone goes, wow, Sabres got Alex Killorn. Wow, look at them. If the Sabres sign Patrick Kane, it won't be the, oh, wow, Cup winner, legend, goes to Buffalo. He must think they're great. No, everyone just take it as, well, he's just going home. That's it. That no one would really read into anything else other than that. So it's not even really a credibility signing, in my opinion. I'm going to give Kane a free agency score of a 1.3. This is the lowest score I've given by a lot. I think this is a terrible idea. I don't think he fits at all what the Sabres want. He doesn't fit their age bracket. I just don't think Kane fits at any level for what they need. So I am out on Patrick Kane as a Buffalo Sabre for sure. Next up, what about Ryan O'Reilly? That's a fun one to get into. What about Ryan O'Reilly? I don't think he'll ever come back here, but it's fun to think about how it could fit. Contract, if maybe he wants to come back. It's different regime, different GM, different coach, different everything. We'll get to O'Reilly when we come back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make a fast break during the NBA playoffs with FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Of course, you've got the Stanley Cup Final that you can look at odds on as well. Florida, a big underdog now. Sergei Bobrovsky over on saves, I'm liking, for game number for later in the series. I'm all about FanDuel Sportsbook. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. It's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase. Number 7, Alex Killorn on our free agent count up. 4.7 score from me. Patrick Kane, number 8, 1.3. My lowest score I've given out yet. What about Ryan O'Reilly? Ryan O'Reilly's a free agent, and he's number 9. I'm not skipping over anybody, so I'm not going to say, well, he'd never come back here, so let's move on. I don't know what O'Reilly wants. I don't think he would. I mean, he lost his love for the game here. So the idea that he would return, I'm skeptical, to say the least. But, maybe I should be open to it. It's a new GM since then. It's a new coach. It's a completely new roster. Is there anyone left? I mean, Okposo and maybe Gergetsons, are those the only 2 players left that O'Reilly played with? And Okposo's beloved by his teammates. So that might be the thing. If O'Reilly is of any interest to the Sabres, they would deploy Kyle Okposo. Kyle Okposo could be the guy that calls O'Reilly and says, "Hey man, it's different now. Everything's different. We are ready. We're going to make the playoffs next year, and you fit perfect. This is how the room is now. I'm the guy. I'm the leader. I'm telling you, this is how it is." I think Okposo could make a call to O'Reilly like that and get him to talk if, again, the Sabres wanted to do that. I do think the Sabres should want to do this. If I were Kevin Adams, I'd be calling O'Reilly just to gauge. See, okay, would you be open to a reunion at all? Because we think you're perfect for what we need. And the contract stuff, all of it, it's not that bad. So starting with the age, 32 years old for Ryan O'Reilly. Not bad. 3-year deal, $5.5 million is the projected contract from AFP Analytics, which Daily Faceoff uses for their list, which Frank Saravelli used. 3 years, $5.5 million. That's nothing for the Sabres. Absolutely nothing. They're not against the cap this year. I mean, the third year, maybe there's some cap implication about it, but I don't know. Taking him to age 35, I think O'Reilly is a player that will go and be strong until he's 35 years old. He's not a player that's ever been too reliant on his speed. Maybe that works the other way. Maybe once his speed goes, it's going to be really bad. But it's not bad yet. And the numbers this past year, you might think that it really went downhill, but it really didn't go as bad as you think. In fact, defensively, he saw a bigger drop off than anywhere else this past year, between the Blues and the Maple Leafs. Well, let me start with the Blues. 40 games with St. Louis, 12 goals, 7 assists for 19 points. Pitiful. 13 games for Toronto, playing on a top 6 line with a good center in John Tavares. 4 goals, 7 assists, 11 points in 13 games. Really strong. And then in the playoffs for Toronto, 3 goals, 6 assists, 9 points in 11 games played, following a season where he had 12 points in 12 games. The guy's a playoff performer. Look at some of his advanced numbers last year. Offensively, 85th percentile. He's still an incredible offensive player. So there's that. And his previous years point to that maybe last year was a little fluky. St. Louis, a bad team. He got to Toronto and played well. Before 21-22, in 78 games played, 21 goals, 37 assists for 58 points. Good. 54 points year before that, 61, 77. Those are his years in St. Louis. Really, really, really good every year. Until last year, the team was bad. He got shipped off to another good team, and he was good again. Funny how that works. So offensively, an 85th percentile player. Transition game, 76th percentile. Puck carrier, puck mover, all neutral zone, really strong player. Here is where O'Reilly dropped off. That's surprising. 28th percentile defender last year. And a terrible penalty killer. That was a big change. And I wonder how real it was. Because every year prior, O'Reilly is a fantastic defensive player. And we know that from his time in Buffalo. He was their guy, their two-way center, their Selke guy. In fact, he got Selke votes, all 3 years that he was in Buffalo. He never finished inside the top 10, but he had Selke votes all 3 years. Year before last, he was an 88th percentile defender. Incredible. And we know O'Reilly is one of the best face-off men in the league. Last year, 62%. Every year, above 50% for his career, going all the way back to when he was a rookie. I mean, he's one of the best face-off guys in hockey. He's a great defender until last year, and I might be willing to think that's a little fluky. He's still a very good offensive player. That's everything the Sabres need. They need the defense. They need the responsibility. They need the penalty killing. They need the face-offs. And they could use all of that inside a player that is still productive. And I think that's Ryan O'Reilly to a T. So I love this idea. I absolutely love this idea. I don't know that he'd ever come back, but man, I hope he does. And I hope the Sabres would be interested. 7.3 is the free agency score that I'm going to give it. That is my second highest score, only trailing Damon Severson. And it's my highest forward. Again, I just don't think he'd ever do it. But I love the O'Reilly deal. I would love to see a reunion. And I think he's well-liked enough by fans these days, right? He's not Eichel for that by any means. All right, that's going to do it for us today on the Locked On Sabres podcast. For you everydayers, next up, we're going to go Tristan Jarry, Jordan Staal, Vladimir Tarasenko. Those are the next 3 free agents on our free agency count up. That's number 11, 12, and 13. 10, Vladislav Gavrikov already signed with his team, so we're skipping over him. So Jarry, Staal, Tarasenko. One of those three, and it might not be the one you're thinking, one of those three I think makes a lot of sense for the Buffalo Sabres, and they might have a tie to the guy. So that's coming up next time on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for everybody listening, and for you everydayers, come back next time for some more free agency talk here on Locked On Sabres.